Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be learning how to make creamy pork chops. Now this recipe involves beautiful onions, beautiful heavy cream, very tart green apples, and lovely bone-in pork chops. Now if you don't have bone-in pork chops, you can always use pork tenderloin medallions or just regular pork tenderloins without the bone. It's honestly completely fine. But what I love about this recipe, it's literally a one-pan meal. That's all you really need. And what we're going to be doing, the process of this amazing dish is pretty much searing and then braising, and literally everything just comes together in one flavor profile. I mean, we're talking about searing these porks with clove, white pepper, salt, and heavy cream. And honestly, it's kind of an indulgent meal, but this is just honestly a really perfect go-to meal when you're having gatherings, when you're having friends over, and even for meal prep. You know, this is just one of those flavors that I really look forward to. I love the creaminess. I love the spice of the white pepper and clove. Everything that just really marries together. Guys, I hope you enjoy this recipe as much as I loved making it and filming it and eating it and trying it. And if you guys have any more suggestions, please don't hesitate to comment down below, DM me. I love communicating with you guys. Don't forget to hit me up on my social media. And now let's get rolling.
Let's begin with our yellow onion. Make sure that they're peeled off, sliced in half, and now let's start by slicing them. I prefer a medium slice for this recipe. Side note, you can do both like I am going to do in the video, meaning I am going to be using the Cipollini onions as well as the yellow onions for this recipe. Once done, set aside for later use. For the garlic, please use large cloves as this just adds much more flavor to the recipe. I'm a huge fan of garlic, so we're going to be using 4 large garlic cloves for this recipe. Now for the slicing or chopping of the garlic, you can honestly either do both. You can chop them up, slice them up. It just depends on how you like it when the recipe is done. If you want to see garlic, if you really don't want to feel that garlic touch, but preferably I like mine either way. Now once you're done chopping it up, just save it and place it aside so we can get started on assembling all the ingredients. Now for the green apples. Start by slicing the ends off and setting the sliced bottom side down so we can have more stabilization when slicing. Start carefully slicing down all around the apple, leaving the core to discard, and place all your cut halves face down. Start by slicing the apples into medium thin wedges. Once you've cut your 3 medium green apples, place them onto a plate and set them aside for later use. At this point, if you like to use your Cipollini onions as well, then gather them up with the rest of your prepared ingredients just to have them on board. For this recipe, I definitely recommend using large thyme sprigs, especially the fresh ones and not the dried ones. Now, if you don't have a potted plant like I do, don't even worry about them. I know that they sell them at the grocery stores, like in little boxes, and you can get them fresh, because honestly, it just makes such a difference with the smell and the taste of that freshness. As you see here, we have all of our set ingredients ready to go so we can get started on the actual cooking. As you see in the video, I actually have a plate with ice and salt and then another plate on top of that, just to make sure that we have the right temperature to the pork. The last thing we want to get is sick from the pork being outside for way too long. Now for the pork chops, we need to make sure that they have been patted dry with either a paper towel or kitchen towel, because we want to avoid any excess moisture when we sear the pork chops. Season your pork with salt on both sides. For this recipe, I will be using 1 1/4 teaspoon of fine salt. My tip when seasoning your meat is to sprinkle above and a bit away from the protein so the salt spreads out evenly on the surface. Now for my favorite part, the ground clove. Let's start by sprinkling the tops of the pork with the ground clove and rub the clove into the pores of the meat. Do this on both sides. We want to make sure that the bottom and top sides are a bit heavily seasoned with the clove, as this makes a great crust when searing it. Once you're done, place your seasoned chops onto the plate again and into the fridge until you're ready to sear. Now for the cooking. Turn your stovetop to a medium-high heat and add in your 2 to 3 tablespoons of oil. Let the oil come up to a high heat. We want to make sure that the oil is hot and not burning so we can get a nice sear on the chops. As you see in the video, I like grabbing the bone-in part and swirling it in the hot oil. Start by placing each pork side by side, making sure to leave a bit of space in between each one. Now we're going to sear the first side for about 3 to 4 minutes, depending on the thickness of your pork chop. Once that side is seared, flip it over and sear it for another 3 to 4 minutes, making sure that you leave a little space in between each pork chop. Now for a little ASMR sizzling action. Once we have both sides of the pork chop seared, place them onto a large plate and turn down your stovetop to a medium heat. Remember that we will be cooking the pork a little bit more, so don't fret if you see red on the pork, because the second cooking is actually going to be with the lid on or an aluminum foil top on. Using the same flavorful porky oil, place in your sliced onions and mix. Now mix it all together. We want to get all those flavors, and next we'll add our delicious green apples. Once again, mix. We're going as we mix. And then we're going to be adding our 4 large fresh thyme sprigs. Lastly, add in your Cipollini onions if you're using that for this recipe, and mix everything together. A little trick that I like is adding half a teaspoon of salt and then mixing everything together, as this helps it not only get translucent a bit faster, but the veggies tend to evaporate as well faster. Lastly, add in your garlic. Now we want to add this at the end because we do not want bitter burnt garlic. Start pouring in your 1.5 cups of heavy cream or 1 pint of heavy cream evenly onto the veggies. Next, we'll add our 3 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. I prefer good quality Dijon mustard because it really does make a difference. And mix until the mustard is incorporated in the sauce. Add in your 1 teaspoon of white pepper and mix everything once again. Let the cream sauce come to a low simmer. Mix once again, and let's get started with the pork chops. Turn down your stovetop to a medium-low heat and start by placing your pork chops inside the sauce, and carefully start tucking them in one by one until they are all evenly placed in the pan. Pop the lid on and allow the pork chops to cook in that creamy sauce for about 6 minutes. Then pop the lid open again and flip the chops to the other side. Place your lid or foil paper on top once again and cook for another 4 minutes. This will be the last step to making these beautiful creamy pork chops. Now for just a recap. We cooked the first side with the cream sauce for 6 minutes, then we flipped it over and cooked it for another 4 minutes with the lid as well on, a total of 10 minutes. Now that our pork chop is done, you see how beautifully creamy and brown that beautiful sauce got. Now, I honestly love leaving my rosemary in because I love it when my family or my friends or when I'm having gatherings, when they know what they're actually eating in their food, they're gonna see that there's apples and Cipollini onions, and you know, just knowing what you're eating for me just makes it more pleasurable. Now let's start putting this on a beautiful plate. For this recipe, I am doing it family style because I am having people over, and this is actually what I will be serving them. So what I'm doing is pretty much lining up the bone-in pork chops all the way till the last one, which is the 4th one. And I am gonna be putting the sauce on top, as you will see soon. This beautiful, very creamy, brown, luscious sauce on top of those bone-in pork chops is just pretty perfect. I'm going to be adding fresh thyme sprigs just to let my guests know that this is what they're getting themselves into, and it looks very natural and pretty.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed this recipe and I hope you enjoyed the video. Now let's get to the taste testing. I cannot wait. All I smell is literally clove and white pepper and cream, and I am just, those are one of my favorite flavors, all of those flavors combined. I kind of want to try the pork first because I want to see if it's like juicy and tender. That was a really big bite that I put in my mouth, but it is absolutely delicious. It's really tender. And what I love about that is that when you're actually tasting the pork, you're actually tasting clove. And I love the way I just seared that with like that clove because it just really stands out, not only in the sauce, but primarily when you're biting into that pork. And that combination of apples and onions, guys, the apples are still a bit crunchy, but that's honestly what I love. Now, if you want them a little bit more soft, just leave them cooking a little bit more in the heavy cream. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you guys have any other suggestions that you would love to see on YouTube, on this channel, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I'm very social, and I love responding to your DMs on social media. So please feel free to reach out. I would love to talk with you guys and communicate with you guys. And I will see you guys next week. And please don't forget to give this video a big like and a big subscribe. Okay guys, I hope you have a wonderful day or an amazing night, and I will see you next week. Ciao.